Welcome back to Cody in the Cinema. Today I'm discussing 5 films you should see before they leave the Criterion Channel on July 31st, or just see them anytime at all would be fine too. Starting with one that many of you have seen, that I love, that any Billy Wilder fan loves, The Apartment. This is my 4K version, but it is still on the channel for a few more days. If you're unfamiliar with The Apartment, this is one of the great starting points for anyone interested in black and white or Billy Wilder. It has Jack Lemmon, Shirley MacLaine working together at an office, and Jack Lemmon here, a single guy, lends out his apartment to like business executives, stuff like that, so that they can have a place to hide with their friends from their wives. You kind of get the idea. And along the way, he meets this young woman who gets caught up in this scheme involving her boss, and it becomes this really good mix of like serious drama and lighthearted comedy. It's amazing all of the different territory that this can cover and how well written the script is. And of course, Jack Lemmon at his best, Shirley MacLaine at her best. Really enjoy this picture. It's absolutely essential Billy Wilder viewing if you haven't seen it. The next one that I recommend, especially for those of you who missed Donald Sutherland, who passed away relatively recently, is one that it's on the channel still, and the 4K is also out if you wanted to buy it for your collection. Don't Look Now, one of the great kind of psychological, sort of creepy, eerie movies out there. And this one is about a couple. He's married to Julie Christie in this, and a very convincing marriage and relationship of, I don't know, of all the screen romances I've ever seen, this is one of the more convincing ones. And they have a real tough crisis hit them early on in the film that impacts their marriage. And a lot of this takes place in Venice, and it involves like, did I see the thing that I think I saw or not? It's adapted from a Daphne du Maurier story. So those of you that liked, The Birds by Hitchcock, it's not exactly the same thing, but she wrote that short story, and you can maybe see what I'm getting at. I do recommend at least one watch of this. So if this is something that you didn't necessarily want to buy a copy of, but you've heard of because it's been on many lists over the years, I would check it out. It's a phenomenal performance from both of them. And the ending to this is really well done. And it's one of those movies that sets up for the ending the entire time, especially making good use of the environment there in Venice. So I think you're going to enjoy that one as a big film fan. One that I just read about all the time on Reddit, and I own this disc for years and never watched it until like the last year. Let me get my DVD collection out here. This is where I keep some of my DVDs in this big case. Bringing Out the Dead, right here next to my copy of Blue Kite that's kind of hard to get a hold of, that I need to watch. Bringing Out the Dead. I don't even think this has a Blu-ray yet. So this would be a very good one to watch if you haven't, because like I said, this one's maybe a little bit tougher to get a hold of. But Bringing Out the Dead, Nicolas Cage drives around in an ambulance and does crazy stuff, dealing with crazy people, and he drinks a lot, and he has just these really strange, odd encounters. It's certainly Scorsese at his most Scorsese. It might remind you a little bit of something like After Hours, a little bit, but probably more insane than that in some ways. A lot of folks really have gravitated to that in the last few years and really want that great physical release. So hopefully it gets one, or has one I don't know about in the works. But that is one of the more entertaining Nick Cage performances out there, if you can even believe that. Still a little bit mad at him for his remake of The Wicker Man, because I'm a huge Wicker Man fan. And I've never really let that go, what his sequel did to The Wicker Man legacy. Just a bad movie. Anyway, Bringing Out the Dead is not a bad movie. It's a good watch. I think certain people that he has in his ambulance are more entertaining than others, but give it a watch. You'll enjoy it. Another movie that I like, that I have a copy of, that is leaving the collection soon, The Royal Tenenbaums. And I know this is kind of like peak Wes Anderson, and it's not his very best movie, but it does have one of his best cast. So Gene Hackman and his wife Angelica Houston have gone through this divorce, and their whole family's kind of all over the place as a result of that, and they kind of come back together. And the strength of this movie is just the cast. You know, Ben Stiller, Gwyneth Paltrow, Luke Wilson. It's entertaining because of its cast. You know, the plot is not super important or whatever. One of those movies you definitely just watch because you enjoy the cast. You have a good laugh out of it, you move on. But Gene Hackman, I've seen, you know, Unforgiven remains one of my favorite Westerns, and I feel like he kind of owns this role in this movie really well. And the other one that I've used in English class before that I'm a big fan of, that I don't have a copy of yet, I'd like to get one, is the 1960s version of A Raisin in the Sun with Sidney Poitier and some other great actors and actresses. And that's a popular play, a very easy to read and short play about, you know, it's this small apartment living situation, and this black family from Chicago lives there, and they get pressured by some folks in a white neighborhood. I don't want to spoil too much of it because that's not even what the whole plot's about, but it's a great you know, examination of family dynamics, what a small amount of space will do to people. It's an incredible study of marriage and just so many other things. It's one of my favorite plays I've ever read, and I've read it many times and just enjoy it so much. But that black and white version, I think, sometimes gets overshadowed because of its age. I know that there's some kind of a remake, but definitely check that out if you're a fan of, you know, English-related stuff. And that's my favorite movie from that actor as well. So give that a watch if you haven't. I thought those might be some that were, you know, not too uncommon that you all might enjoy. And if you've seen any of those and want to comment on them below, please do that. All your comments, your likes, this really helps build the channel. And I appreciate your comments. Every time someone leaves something with a film recommendation, I'm like, oh yeah, you know, either I need to watch that or I got to go back and look at that again. So that helps me as much as anyone. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Cody in the Cinema.